Hey guys, what's going on? We got another Enhancement Shaman PvE video. This time we are doing Grim Batol on Mythic. Now I'm not showing my gear this time because my gear has changed significantly because this was recorded on the Tuesday rather than on this weekend after raid. So that's why my gear isn't being shown, but my talents are still going to be shown anyways. So yeah. But anyways, if you didn't know, the season has halfway started. PvP is active, Heroic Raid is out, and Delves are somewhat active right now. But starting next week, on the next reset, we will have Mythic Plus and the rest of the Delve levels, which is quite interesting. But yeah, so this week has been crazy. But as you'll see in this run here, that Mythic Grim Batol, we have no idea what's going on, so we do get our butts kicked quite a bit. Just be warned about that. It's kind of fun. But yeah, anyways, so one of the big news that's coming through is the enhancement, basically tuning changes for the reset. Now, a lot of people are very curious about that and whether it's a big nerf or a big buff. So it's overall, it's going to be a nerf. Just to put that out there, it's going to be a nerf. Basically, what it's going to do is it's going to double our cooldown on feral spirits, essentially. And now, it's not like... I'm not going to say it's the end of the world or anything. They're doing some compensation buffs with that 4% overall. And I think they buffed something else. I'm not really sure. I can't remember. But I think we're going to still be in a great place. But yeah, overall, it is a very slight nerf, I believe. It's more targeted at our 4 set. And that is one of the big reasons. But this change is also a change that was going to come in 11.0.5 anyways. So it just came a bit earlier to try and balance out the class a bit better. But yeah. So basically that's going to be a slight nerf. But we are going to be just fine. Don't worry about it too much. We still got the same playstyle. It's also going to be a bit better on when you make a mistake and you accidentally cast Lightning Bolt before summoning Feral Spirits and then you get a reset or something like that. It's not going to be as punishing to have Feral Spirits off cooldown. Off cooldown. Because you're only taking 1 second off to a maximum of 10 rather than 2 to 20 seconds. So it's not that big of a downfall when you get into that standpoint. But I mean, if you are playing perfectly and you're able to use feral spirits all the time, it's definitely going to feel a bit different, and you're definitely going to feel your cooldown situation widen a lot. But yeah, I'd say overall we're still going to be just fine. But as for the Mythic Plus scenario, that starts next week. I am super excited. Doing Mythic Zeros doesn't quite give you the proper feel for an AoE situation. I still find the mobs die quite fast, but I mean it does give you some idea of what to look for, and it is definitely showing that these dungeons are going to be a pain in the butt, and there aren't really any giant pulls that I can think of that will happen in any of these, which is great for us since we are a very 6 target limit class. Very nice for us. But at the same time, all of our utility that we have too has been kind of nerfed in a way. We can still stop their cast in a sense, but they will recast right away, which is quite unfortunate because thunderstorm, static, sunder would interrupt and stop their cast. But let's say it's a heal that usually when you knock it or whatever, it stops and then it goes on cooldown. It's no longer doing that. So it's kind of taken a nerf to our utility, which does suck a little bit, but I would say, we still have our very fast interrupt, so we're still quite useful on that point, but it's definitely going to feel weird not being able to knock and interrupt certain things. And some of the way these mobs work is definitely going to be a real
Breath
pain in the
incoming.
butt. That is one thing for sure. But yeah, as for Mythic Plus, I can't wait for it to start. The new mechanics as well. I haven't had a
Watch your
chance to
step.
really try them. I attempted to try them on beta, but was never able to get a proper group. So super duper excited for that. Another thing also, trinkets have been adjusted. So if
Breath
you didn't know,
incoming.
the Arakara trinket, the one that is haste and then gives you primary stat and deals a bit of damage, the
Watch your step.
intellect or agility or whatever you're using it for got nerfed by 5%. Now it's still going to be best in slot. There is no way around that. Um, but it's not going to be as a massive upgrade as, against the other ones. But I still think it's going to be best in slot. Same with the Dawnbreaker and the Grim Batol trinket. I haven't had any luck getting any of those, but yeah. Um, we're gonna be farming those 3 dungeons. You pick 2 of them. I think Grim Batol is second best. If you want a raid trinket, I'd definitely go with the tier set one with the fist weapon, which I was lucky enough to get on normal. I haven't gotten the trinket yet, but I'm hoping to soon because I think that would be a great addition to the build. Essentially, I know it says don't, but I mean, you can't not run something without a tier set, you know what I mean? But yeah. Oh, the other buff was to our tier set. Rather than going down to 6%, it's going back up to 10%. That's about it on our 2 set. Sorry, that was kind of random, but I remembered what they did. Um, but yeah, all these dungeons seem like an absolute blast. I think they're going to be a lot of fun. They're definitely going to be difficult, but I think enhancement is going to prove itself very, very useful for a season for once. It's going to be nice. I
Shockwave.
know Dragonflight, we had kind of a weird one,
Interrupt.
and I know a lot of people don't really like the Elementalist style, but that will change come 11.0.5. But I still think all the builds are very competitive with each other, so don't be afraid to play
Shockwave.
whichever one you like the most. I'm going to be playing whatever one does the most damage. And then every once in a while I'll be doing something that I just find fun. That's how I usually work. But yeah,
Shockwave.
that's kind of it. Also another thing, just kind of like a secret tech type of thing for enhancement. Um, there is this very weird interaction with Primordial Wave and Tempest. And I only just noticed this very recently. And then there's also a second one which you have no real control over.
Run
So
out.
when you Primordial Wave and then you Tempest, your bonus Lightning Bolt is actually going to do a significant amount of damage. Um, as to why I haven't figured that out yet, I think it has to do with Tempest being able to cleave and stuff against extra mobs or something like that, and it takes that damage and puts it into the lightning bolt, but I'm not 100% sure. And the second one, and this one is AoE, it can be single target, but there's a less likely chance. If you have 2 stacks of
Shockwave.
Awakening Storm, and then you Primordial Wave, and you have either, I guess it really doesn't matter, but if you have Tempest up or not, I guess, and then you Lightning Bolt, if that initial Lightning Bolt on Primordial Wave or Tempest triggers an Awakening Storm, your Primordial Wave Lightning Bolts will be Tempests. Now, this is something you can slightly control, but it's still RNG on whether that lightning bolt will trigger that next Tempest.
Shockwave.
I've had this happen very few times, but when it happens, it
Shockwave.
is insane amount of damage. It really is. I had it happen during raid on one of the
Shockwave.
on the Gahoon looking boss, the slug monster. Bunch of ads were up and I launched it and it happened and I just saw myself shoot right up the damage meters. It was unbelievable. Now, I don't know if that is a bug or if that is intended, but That is nuts. I didn't realize that could happen until I saw it with my own eyes. It was quite crazy, and it was kind of fun. Um, but I haven't had
Shockwave.
I've had it happen maybe once or twice after that.
Shockwave.
It does not happen often, but I think
Shockwave.
you can kind of fish for that by watching
AoE
your
incoming.
Awakening Storm procs, which is from your Storm Strike and Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt. It's kind of crazy.
Shockwave.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's intended. I it's just like what the heck. But it was a crazy amount of damage. And I cannot wait to see it happen even more because some of this is kind of fun. But overall, I think enhancement is going to be in a great spot. Aside like these niche situations are pretty great. Having on use ascendants once again is awesome, and the feel of it in raid is great too. But also, like after doing a lot of these dungeons, and you will see decurse is massive. Decurse is a massive thing to have because everything somehow puts a curse on you. I don't know why, but there are so many curses in this season. It's crazy. Grim Batol does curses. Stone Vault does curses. I'm pretty sure there's two more somewhere that do curses, but I don't really remember. But it's just crazy, and I think they've done a great job with Grim Batol too, with it being a remaster and everything. I think it's a wonderful change to it.
Shockwave.
It definitely feels like a Mythic Plus dungeon, although the trash count is very small. Um, I think it's going to be a blast. The bosses are definitely a pain in the ass, especially this next one that's coming up was an absolute nightmare. Holy cow! Especially if you're a
Shockwave.
ranged player too, it's definitely annoying.
Watch
But
your
I
step.
think overall, once the tuning comes in, maybe,
AoE incoming.
or maybe some despawn timers and stuff like that come in, is kind of crazy. But yeah. Um, as for the raid, it's been an absolute blast. I've enjoyed it. If you watch me Tuesday, Wednesday doing it on the Shaman, we are now,
Interrupt.
I think it's
Shockwave.
6 out of 8 heroic. Um, so
Shockwave.
we went in Sunday night and finished off two more bosses. Thankfully, it took us 2-3 hours ish, but we ended up getting them down. We didn't get any loot, unfortunately, but it is what it is. I'm gonna be pushing tomorrow, I think Tuesday, for a bunch of Mythic Plus trinkets. Hopefully get those before raid. But yeah, the raid is great. I think the first boss is a bit weird. Um, the whole feed mechanic is a bit odd, but I think it's still a good intro boss. The second boss, however, seems to have a very,
Shockwave.
um, very high skill jump
Watch your
from
step.
first boss. And I don't know if it's just me, but I think that boss should
AoE
be like
incoming.
put a bit further back. Every other boss seems very, very simple. And then that one just seems to jump in skill. I don't know, maybe that's just me,
Shockwave.
but the way the mechanic works, and I know there's not very many mechanics part of it, it's just get hit by the frontal, go down into the shadow realm, defeat the ads, and then go back to the boss, and then run out from the boss because he's doing an AoE. It still seems like
Shockwave.
it's more difficult than any other boss
Shockwave.
aside from 7 and 8, the last two bosses. It's somewhat more difficult in my opinion, I guess. Maybe not the fifth one, the shadow guy where he does the portals and stuff, but yeah, I kind of blanked out on
Shockwave.
most of those fights, I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, it seemed like it
Watch
was
your
quite the
step.
big jump. um Also,
AoE
second last
incoming.
boss, in my
Watch your step.
opinion, I hate mechanics that
AoE incoming.
require 2 or 4 people
Shockwave.
to do the mechanic perfectly, and if they don't, then it's a
Watch your
wipe.
step.
I hate that because I was doing back in Legion, there was a boss killed Jaden, um, on I think it was any difficulty. Every single raid member had to stand in a swirly, and if you didn't, it would explode and wipe the entire raid. Now I have like 350 wipes on Mythic Kill Jaden. I hate that type of mechanic. I understand putting it in, and it's only 2 to 4 people, but like I think in like smaller groups, like if you go to like a 10 man, I think that's going to be very difficult to deal with. Oh yeah, here completely forgot this guy jumped on a dragon at 50%, so he popped everything. We're like, oh damn. But to get back to what I was talking, it seems like it'll be harder for the smaller groups because you only have X amount of DPS, right? Whereas if you go into a 20 man, you have what 14 DPS to pick from, whereas a 10 man you only have 6, and you need to sacrifice one of your melee, I guess, to get that. It just seems very odd to me, especially if it breaks or somebody makes a mistake. Um, oh yeah, somebody ran into
Breath
ran
incoming.
into the elemental. It's kind of funny. And we wiped, but or not wiped, but took a lot of damage. But yeah, those type of mechanics kind of bug me in a sense, and the reason being is you can't essentially make a mistake. And I think that's very, very difficult for more, I guess, casual
Run.
guilds, because you have to do this mechanic perfectly or it's over. And that's not necessarily
Breath incoming.
a good thing, I guess. I think that should be more of a mythic mechanic than a heroic mechanic, I guess. But I don't know. It just seemed odd to me. It seemed like the difficulty level from boss 5 or boss 6 to boss 7 is significantly higher than anything else. And it's strictly because of that mechanic, I think. And also then you have to like jump on the boss, get dispelled and stuff like that, which I had no idea. But yeah, it just seems like
Breath
the
incoming.
and I know it's the second last boss and it's supposed to be difficult, but the difficulty jump seemed to be significant. And then you go to the last boss, and in my opinion, the last boss is a lot easier than the second last boss. And maybe that's just on normal difficulty, but it seemed a bit odd to me. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that's basically my opinion on raid. I still think it's a great raid.
Run.
It was a lot of fun. Definitely. I mean, new content. When isn't it fun? Am I right? But yeah. And then onto the topic of delves.
Breath incoming.
Delves are something else. Um, yeah, they seem to be oddly tuned. Uh, one day I was soloing them, much lower item level than I was, doing them at a level 8 and having somewhat easy time with them. And then I jump in there a couple days later trying to do some more coffers, and I'm just getting absolutely
Shockwave.
blasted. You know, I'm interrupting, I'm CCing, I'm using my defensives, and it just doesn't seem to matter. Like, I seem to just get slapped. Like, the melee attacks are doing 40% of my health. The casts are just unbelievably fast and unstoppable. Like, I interrupt, and they're just like, okay, I'm casting again. And it's like, well,
Knocking
you didn't
back.
walk towards me for one, and it's doing 40% of my health. And then one time I was trying to line of sight, and it did not care. It just blasted through the pillar, and I was extremely confused because I couldn't attack it, but it could attack me. So I was like,
Knocking
what the
back.
heck's going on here? And then a couple days later, some patch notes came out, hot fixes. So I was like, okay, let's try this again.
Watch your
And
feet.
similar thing happened, but I could actually complete it. Um, it's kind of annoying. I understand they want it to be difficult on the first week. I understand that because it is the essentially the best
Watch your step.
spot to get the best gear right now. is spamming delves with your bountiful keys. And it completely makes sense of why it should be difficult. But to almost make it impossible for certain classes, like if I didn't
Watch your
have a
step.
proper self heal, I don't think I'd be able to clear this, like clear these delves. Like it's just kind of ridiculous. But maybe you have to go in there with the mindset of almost like classic, where you're like, okay, hex this target, root this guy, pull this guy back, and then beat the
Watch your
crap out of
step.
him, and then grab the rooted guy, hex the other guy again. You know what I mean? And maybe if you have to do that, but I don't know. This is supposed to be like world content in a sense, and I figured it would be a bit easier than it is. Like I figured people that just like exploring the world and playing solo, I don't know if like how easy it is for them. I mainly because I
Watch
don't
your
know their
step.
skill level even, but I felt like delves should be an introduction to World of Warcraft, I guess, and it just seemed a bit odd having them so difficult. But then again, it is an 8 and it's meant for item level 600 plus. And I know once we get,
Watch
full
your step.
geared, it'll be a lot easier. But at this point, I figured if you're around the item level that it recommends, it shouldn't be that difficult. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like it should be that difficult, but I don't know. I don't know. But yeah. Anyway, so far with everything that has been released, it's been a good time. Um, the raid is great. We got a few best in slot pieces, which is awesome. The embellishments are interesting, and the best part about crafting and stuff like that is that PvP and PvE are completely separate now, which I love because if you know my content, I
Watch
love
your
doing
step.
PvP as well. Um, but the only thing that bugs me is the bonus
Find
token that
shelter.
you get from reaching either 1600 or doing AOTC, which those two do not correlate in my opinion. I don't think 1600 should mean that. I think that should be like 1800, but maybe that's just me, or like normal clear. I don't know. But um, yeah, it definitely so when you get that token, you still have to choose between a PvE piece or a PvP piece, which in my opinion is annoying. And I understand that. I understand why they make it so you
Defensive.
can't get two tier pieces for, one for each. But at least give us the option,
Watch your step.
or maybe separate the tier sets. Separate them to a PvP tier set and a PvE tier set so you
Find
can't
shelter.
cross them over. You know what I mean? Like it'll be the same set, but PvP is nerfed. You know what I mean? Like it's down to its PvP value, whereas the PvE gear is whatever it is. Maybe that stuff, and then you cannot combine the set. Like they won't link up. So, in my opinion, that's how they should do it because it feels like you're punishing those that do both sets of content. Is all. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. That's my only real
Defensive.
concern. But yeah, other than that, everything so far that has been released is amazing. This boss is absolutely annoying. These stupid tentacles. Oh my god, you'll
Watch
see
your
here in a
step.
second. I died to this dumb mechanic. But essentially, all these tentacles, if you run into them, they stun you.
Find
And as you
shelter.
can see, he's big and fat, and you can barely see anything. There's so many mobs in the way too, and you got to move through all this crap. Oh man, we were laughing the whole time we did this, though. It's actually funny as heck. But yeah, anyways, guys, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully you're enjoying War Within as well, and what's to come, and yeah. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Laters!